how do you kind of run a farm, a cooperative farm, and kind of connect farming to mutual aid efforts locally. And so what that experiment looked like in the past with the farmers that we worked with, they basically distributed some of their produce to the local kind of mutual aid hubs, as a way to kind of like make sure that some of the produce was reaching people for free and alleviating people's like food-based needs. And so our experiment was, how do we take that a step further and move away just from the concept of needing to grow food and then provide it to people? How do we take that a step further and kind of deepen our sense and experiment of what mutual aid is, through this lens of a survival program? And basically for us, what that meant was that we wanted to distribute all the food that we produced, to leaders who were in the movement incubation program, and then also leaders who came to Dogbane as a space of convergence from movement groups, both locally and national retreats that we did, and kind of give that produce for free, but not for free, but in response, ask for people to increase their investment in organizing into this project, and kind of practice moving away from creating a charitable relationship around the food that was distributed and into a more political relationship. And so one way of thinking about it was like the food we were distributing, it was allowing us to kind of help alleviate the needs of people who are organizing, as a way to support them in kind of then having more time, more energy, more labor to dedicate to organizing. But I would also say this kind of framework of survival programs can also be applied to not just the element of agriculture of this project, like the food that we grew and produced and distributed, but also the space that was created, the infrastructure we created for people and groups to meet here, and the ways in which we were able to alleviate movement leaders, even precarity, not around just food, but also around mental health, a precarity around lack of community, and kind of addressing that through this project as a way to then support movement leaders in having more time, more labor, more energy, and more strategic clarity in their organizing projects. And so a lot of the stuff we've talked about in the panel and earlier was this idea that we really need approaches that are rooted in meeting people's material needs as a way to even make it possible for us to do organizing around stuff like Palestine solidarity, other kinds of direct action work. And that really was true for our project. A lot of the people that kind of participated in Dogbane and kind of were supported through the food we grew, the community that we built, were people who are doing things like organizing workers and organizing divestment campaigns. And we know that all of that is amazing, but if those leaders don't have the ability to alleviate their own kind of precarity, whether it comes to their own food, their own kind of material lives, those kind of direct action approaches and movements kind of have a limitation to how far they can go. And so we really saw the importance of that. And the last thing I'll say is, while we're developing this framework of a climate survival program and what that looks like, we also recognize that we're not starting from scratch, like everyone has shared on the panel as well. There's a deep history and lineage of survival approaches in this country and also globally that we can learn from. And even in the local communities where we're piloting these programs, there is a history and a lot of initiatives that are surrounding mutual aid and solidarity economics. So the point of creating this more kind of disciplined, clear framework around a climate survival program is not to erase all of that pre-existing work, but it's to say that even though these kind of isolated and smaller kind of initiatives of mutual aid and survival and the ways that they're happening are so important, but we need to build on those and we need to evolve on those collectively to take into consideration like that we need to have a more kind of aligned strategy across movements, and we need to build up people's ability collectively to create pathways for self-determination. And I think that's where a lot of our, I think mutual aid groups in general kind of like struggle with that tension of like, how do you distribute things and at the same time take into consideration that that moment of like crises, that moment of contact where you're reaching leaders is also an opportunity to get them to divest from capitalism, invest in solidarity-based economics. And how do you even create pathways for that in our system? It's going up against the system literally when you're thinking about how do you create like economic self-determination.